Joe Keithley, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propagandhi.
Yeah, hi. How you doing there, Greg?
Excellent, thank you very much. Joe, why don't you just go ahead and just tell listeners out there who you are, what you do, a little bit, just a little potted bio
Yeah,
to get you
sure,
get
sure.
things
I'll
going.
give you the mini bio because the full one will take the entire show.
Yeah,
I'm Joe Keithley, better known as Joey Shithead from the band DOA. Been going 46 years, played 4,500 shows in 50 countries on 5 continents. So I also run Sudden Death Records, a record label, and I'm also a counselor in my hometown, the city councilor. I'm in my second term, so I've been elected for 6 years. So stuff like that, right?
very cool. I know there's a new film coming out about you, correct?
Yeah, it's called Something Better Change, done by Scott Crawford, who did Salad Days and Boy Howdy, and produced by Paul Rockman, who did American Hardcore, which obviously DOA is promptly featured in that. So that, yeah, it's half about DOA, probably more weighted with my activism than getting into politics, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. So it intertwines the two. There's lots of punk rock in it, but there's lots of political action, and I just
Awesome. Well, Joe, I want to chat about the new DOA tribute record, "No Escape
yeah,
from
here we
What You
go.
Are." There you go. Got a copy of it right there. What color is that record that you were just holding up? Is that a color copy?
Oh, there you go. There's a red vinyl right there. Yeah, so
Awesome.
there's a bunch of variations. That's what we do as labels, right?
Yeah, tell me about the different variants. Do you have any like pressing information on the different colors that you did?
Yeah, we do. Well, there's obviously black vinyl. There's red. There's one's called Smash, which is like black. And what they do, they drop some yellow into it, right? So it's got like kind of a. I don't have one right in front of me, but it's kind of this like smear type pattern. It's pretty cool. And there's like splatter, and then the first smash is like yellow. Then we're repressing another one to be an orange smash, and there'll also be like a transparent orange for like it instead of the red. So we went through these pretty quickly, so we're already repressing them.
Fantastic. I know there's I have a CD copy coming in the mail. It's just so much cheaper for shipping and stuff like that, especially to the States.
Yeah,
But I know that there's a strike going on with Canada Post, right? So it's like kind of
yeah.
difficult getting them out there these days.
Um, well, let's see. There's a couple giant boxes sitting in my at Sudden Death Records waiting to be mailed, and I'm talking giant boxes that are held up because the Canada Post strike. But I'm a well-known labor guy, and people have a right to strike. That's what unions did have done over the years is given an 8-hour day, a lunch break, a coffee break, compensation if you're, so unions are a really valuable thing, and people have a right to strike. So we just can't mail anything. So yours, as soon as the strike's over, yours is in the mail.
Nice. Yeah, that's totally fine with me. I'm willing to wait for the collective bargaining to see itself through to the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so tell me about the origin of this DOA tribute record. How did this thing come to exist?
Yeah, probably about a year and a half ago, like probably after a show, because we always get back to the hotel and sit around, have a few beer, and talk about the show and talk about the interesting people or the absolutely insane people that we met that day, right? Which happens every show, right? There's a mix of the two, and my drummer Patty suggested, why don't we get a bunch of our punk rock friends to cover DOA songs, right? So we did. Obviously, Propagandhi's one. Obviously. Rancid, Circle Jerks, Adolescence, Voivod, Slime Fear. My buddy Duff from Guns N' Roses did 2 tracks, so
Hmm.
MDC, Deep X from Ireland, a couple of guys, Ray and Klaus from Dead Kennedys. I sing on that one. I tried to get Biafra on, and he almost did, then it didn't work out, right? So then, yeah, and Descendants that do also a great track too.
Yeah, I was listening to it. I know it's streaming on YouTube Music right now. That's the only place I've been able to hear the whole entire thing so far. But
Yeah,
I know that you and Duff recently appeared on Turned Out a Punk as a joint episode as well. So if people want to hear you and Duff chatting together, that's a really great episode that I recently enjoyed too. But that's pretty cool that you sang on the Dead Kennedys track. Is it you and then the other 3 members of Dead Kennedys besides Jello?
well, Darren DH is not around anymore.
Right.
Obviously, rest his soul. Like, he was a really good buddy, and what an incredibly talented drummer. He was like so good. So they had another drummer who I haven't met. Um, And so they did the track and sent it up to Vancouver, and I sang on, and then so we do the old DOA classic Smash the State, and which was originally on Hardcore 81, right? So yeah, so we just got that done, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Like I was friends with all four of those guys, right? So I know they argued and stuff like that. I just don't want to take sides as all four were friends, and still are.
Yeah.
Well, not Darren, who's not with us, but he was a great friend of mine.
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, so Propagandhi, as you know, you're on a Propagandhi podcast. Every episode about this podcast is about a different Propagandhi song. What is your awareness of the band Propagandhi, being like a couple of, Canadian bands, been around for a long time? What's your relationship or awareness of them just in general as a person in Canada who like loves music?
Yeah, we've only played with them a few times. So one time in particular was outdoor festival. I want to say it's either in Holland or Belgium. I can't remember. Probably about 5 years ago, like with multiple outdoor stages and stuff like that. And that was great because I went back say hello to those guys, and they were like super friendly, great guys. And I think the great thing about Propagandhi is they picked up not just because of us, but in a similar manner that on incorporating politics in the punk rock, like really heavily, right? So just as DOA did, or the Dead Kennedys, or the Clash, amongst there are other great examples too, right? But those four come to mind. So they have a great reputation, great band, and they've done all sorts of good music and stood up for all sorts of good causes as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Were you a fan of the band? Do you follow what they do?
Well, I knew the records. I seen them play, and I thought they were great. I'm not a guy who buys a lot of records. I had a great punk rock record collection. In '85, I went to California. DOA came back, and all the records got ripped off. I had all the early stuff, but it was all gone. Probably worth a fortune, but what can I do, right? I never got back, right? So
Yeah.
So I do not really collect records, right? So which may sound strange to some, but it's true. Yeah, but no, I'm a fan of those guys. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, okay, so the song that they cover on the tribute record, Fuck You, has a really interesting history. And I realized that it's kind of like one of those like dolls that like there's like a layer, like the dolls that are all inside of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. This song is like that. And I'm wondering if you can just kind of tell me the history of this particular song because it's super fascinating.
Yeah, well, we had a band before DOA started, before the Subhumans started, and we were called the Skulls, and not to be confused with the Skulls from LA. We were from Vancouver, obviously, and we thought we'd move out to Toronto, and then maybe to England. So we went to Toronto for the horrible, horrible cold winter snow, which us West Coast guys aren't used to, right? So, and we got out there, but Jerry Hanna from later on the Subhumans, one of our guys I grew up with, right? 2 blocks away from me. He came up with us, right? And but he didn't have a band. But we practiced in the basement of this old house, and he was sitting there writing songs. So we kind of made this like a throw together band. I think I drummed, and Dimmock played bass, and Simon played guitar, and then Jerry sang, and something like that. And he came up with a bunch of songs that later became Subhuman staples. And one of them was like "Fuck You." And, oh, that's a really good song, right? So that was like part of his creative genius. Like he's really one of my best friends growing up, right? Like Wimpy and Dimwit, rest their souls. Those two guys, Jerry and I, were like the 4 best friends during high school, and it formed some of the most terrible rock bands ever heard during high school, right? I'm lucky the tapes are not out. I'd be ruined.
Yeah, what's the story of the Stiffs as well? I was finding some information about the Stiffs too.
Yeah. So, anyways, when so the Skulls broke up, I moved back to Vancouver in February '78 and started DOA. I found Chuck, I found Randy. That was obviously a great trio, and then Dimwit and Jerry got the Subhumans going, but I guess Jerry was involved with the Stiffs. It was like Jerry, Sid, maybe Zippy. I can't quite remember. It's going back quite a ways, right? So, and they did a few recordings together and played some live shows around Vancouver. They never got like traveling, like DOA, the Subhumans did, instead up and down the West Coast, right? So it was like kind of a short-lived thing, but it was like but more of our friends with another band.
Hmm. So then Jerry, who wrote the song, then goes to Subhumans. It becomes a Subhuman song as well. It would like, and then when does DOA start doing it? Because I know that you all recorded it very early on too.
Yeah, we did it in I want to say '83 after Jerry got arrested being part of the Squamish Five or Vancouver Five, whatever, right? And believe me, I'm not endorsing what they did. Solving problems is better done in a peaceful way, and not with blowing things up, shit like that, right? So I don't endorse that. But he's a buddy of ours, so we wanted to do something to help with his legal fees because we knew that could be like enormous, and he didn't come from like a rich family, so we put together a benefit record, and on one side was "Burn It Down," I believe, and the other side was "Fuck You." We just went to studio. It was easy to do, and it just worked out right.
Yeah. So it came out on a 7-inch as well before it came out on the compilation record that it came on later on. I think it was like Bloody Not Unbowed.
Bloody but about yes, it's just a 7-inch single,
Okay.
which are not hard to find, but a little bit hard to find.
Got it. Okay, cool. Okay, so what is the personnel that you remember about the DOA version? Like who's on it, who's doing what was it, where was it recorded? Anything you can remember about the details of it?
Yeah, as far as I recall, it would have been. Geez, that's a good question. Like Dave Gregg and I on guitar. Wimpy played bass and sang, obviously because like he did that with the Subhumans, obviously, and Dimwit drums. So and we recorded at Propal Studios in Vancouver, where we did like tons of records with Cecil English.
What was that 7-inch called again? I'm just like perusing the Discogs.
It's called Right to Be Wild.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Very good. Okay, so you all still play this one live. I saw a video of you playing it on YouTube just pretty recently, a couple of
Yeah.
years ago, maybe. What do you dig about doing this one now, still in the band? Out of all the songs you have as a band who's been around forever, you could play so many things. Why are you still bringing this one into the table?
It's a strong song, and you can dedicate it to anybody you want. So, so that usually works out depending on what's going on politically or socially. I mean, I usually say something about it, right? And it's one of those ones like we do play a few new songs, but when DOA plays live, we do a lot of the staples. It's like "Fuck You," "The Enemy," World War III, "The Prisoner," etc. A lot of songs that are on the tribute record.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's some of the most popular songs, which is like typical for bands to do. You usually play your best known stuff, and it's like oh my god, like on The Simpsons, they have a mock version of a BTO on there, famous Canadian band, and Randy, the singer, who I've known for years, a guitarist, goes like, "Well, we're gonna play some new stuff," and Homer starts booing, "No, play Take Care of Business."
Yeah.
It's like sometimes you can only play the old stuff depending on what fans you've got for that particular show, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, a record that I was really digging from DOA this past week that's kind of in the middle of your catalog is Log Jammin'.
Or
I
Log Jam, yeah.
Yeah, I was loving that record this week a lot, and it just, I was kind of digging through a bunch of your stuff, and it made me happy. And it's got the cover art from Loggerheads, is from the Oka Crisis as well, which
Yeah.
Propagandhi wrote about in another song. So that was pretty cool. And that's just a totally random question, but why did you choose that image for the cover of that record? Because it's just related tangentially to Propagandhi in a totally different way.
Yeah, we just the incident happened, Oka Crisis or whatever it's called at the time, right? And we saw that photo and we thought like how dramatic to have the soldier and the warrior on the front type thing. And so we found the photographer, and I can't remember, we paid like $500. Said go ahead and use it. We knew it was the photo was so famous. We knew we'd get sued if we tried to. Oh, let's just do this one on the fly, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of what a lot of punk rock bands do. And um, it's just a statement for the time. Like, you're thinking about, we're in a time in Canada, we're trying to get some reconciliation between First Nations, the original people of this continent, and between all the people that came from Asia, Europe, Africa,
Hmm.
whatever, like from all over the world. And it's really important to realize that everything that we have here is not just Europe centric English language type thing. We have to recognize and respect the rights of the indigenous people in this continent, and
Yeah.
I'd say in the Western hemisphere too, obviously, right? So, because they all got screwed along the way, right,
Yeah.
by the
Well,
settlers.
I love that picture because I was like, oh my gosh, it's the cover from it's a photo from the Oka Crisis or the standoff at Kanesatake in Quebec, and really amazing and in-depth history. I fortunately Propaganda wrote a song about it, so I have learned so much about it from doing that particular episode. But I just love that little connection when I was digging into your discography as well. So back to the tribute record. What are your thoughts on Propagandhi's version? How did they get involved in this?
Yeah, well, I talked to them via email, and they were into it right away. Like, we had gone through, got a few people on board. One of the first people was Tim from Rancid. He said yes in about 5 minutes, and of course, Duff from Guns N' Roses is a buddy of mine, and he was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So, got a few people organized like that. A few people were on the fence, and got hold of a Propaganda guys, and they were like, "Yeah, absolutely, right." And then I gave them a list of songs that had been picked, and then obviously they just go through and pick out any one they want, and they came up with one of the best songs, right? So, which is obviously "Fuck You," right? So, and they do like a great version of it, if you ask me, right? So it's like really, it's got lots of balls, and we'll
Hmm.
just kind of, a song like that's meant to kick you in the teeth, uh, you know, philosophically and sound wise, and their version does that. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I loved about their song is that it was their first foray back into the studio in quite a long time. They
Oh,
recorded
okay,
it months and months ago, and they just finished recording their eighth LP finally
right.
after a almost a 7 year gap in
Wow,
records.
okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, okay.
So they recorded this one kind of as like a standalone thing, and I think it kind of kickstarted their recording process for their new record, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I say, it's fantastic. So then they made lots of good records and like really highly experienced, so
Hmm.
why not? So if that helped out a little bit, I'm glad.
Well, and they changed the lyrics in the last verse a little bit. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the variations are, but everybody took their own slant at some of the stuff, right? Fear did New Age,
Yeah.
and Lee um, took a really interesting, that's good, really interesting tack with the vocals, did all sorts of things that I didn't do. But I think when you do a cover, that you should you put your own take on it. Like, what's the point of trying? Oh, we're going to make it exactly like this, because like the bands on this record are great bands. They're not cover bands. I mean, we've
Hmm.
all recorded cover songs at times. DOA probably has recorded like 15 cover songs, right? Because we think, oh, that's a great song. Let's do it. Throw it on this record. It's
Yeah.
just one of the kinds of things you do as an artist.
Well, speaking of New Age and speaking of Jerry Hanna, I couldn't believe it whenever I realized today that this No Means No, Oh Canada New Age 7 inch was directly related to the conversation we were going to have. Because I had forgotten I even owned this, but I was looking at that Stiffs track listing on Bandcamp and I was like, Oh Canada. So I went over and I pulled this out. Boom. It's on this No Means No 7 inch. And then
Right.
your track New Age is on this 7 inch too. I think this came out in 91 ish. But yeah, do you remember this thing?
Yeah, sure do. I mean, well, the No Means No guys, we played, DOA played in Victoria, I want to say like about 83 or something like that, at the university there, like a lot of people. And some guys didn't like us. They started chucking some stuff. Hit Randy in the hand, and his hand was bleeding. Um, so then they kept getting more aggressive. So finally, we just said we challenged them to a fight, and we picked up mic stands and cymbal stands, and they ran for it, right? But John and Rob Wright, that was the first punk rock show they've been to, and they told me later, like, "What? Whoa, holy crap!" So that's what punk rock's like. This is pretty interesting. You were like, okay, you want to do that? We're going to take care of you, right? I mean, nothing happened. Those guys ran off, right? So there's no bloodshed except for where they cut Randy's hand with the beer bottle, right? So
love it. Well, Joe, my last question is if there's ever been any updates on the stolen DOA stage banner.
oh yeah, yeah, we got that back. Oh my god, I don't want to get into all these details, but our van got broken into in Spokane, Washington, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, around then, right? And so, and they must have spotted us at the gig and then followed us up to the hotel. And fortunately, we had backed the van against a tree, so they can only get some stuff out that couldn't get the guitar heads or the cabinets. So they grabbed a snare drum, some merchandise, and we always take we don't leave the guitars in the van. Like only idiots do that, right? So because you're going to lose them, right? Unless it's just $100 guitar and you don't care, right? And then I got a mysterious call from this person, said she had a bunch of DOA stuff, but she wanted money to get back. And I'm just listening to this like, okay, this is like absolutely highway robbery, right? So I had they had one price, but I sent my friend Dusty, musician from Spokane, down to deal with her, and he got most of the stuff back. We didn't get Peggy's snare drum back, which is too bad. It was a really great snare, and and we didn't pay too much money. It took a couple $100, right? So it wasn't too bad. Hello, Cat, and so yeah, that was unfortunate, but it's just a lesson to musicians: be careful. Don't let people see where you're going. Don't leave the really valuable stuff in the van. Don't assume that the world is honest, because it's not.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that you got that back, because I was following that story a couple years ago and I just kind of lost the thread eventually. But I am delighted to hear that it has returned.
It was like in Spokane. It was on front page news. It was on their local television station, on the radio, and people were offering rewards to get stuff back. The community was really really helpful trying to get the stuff back, and eventually we got most of it back. So that was cool.
Awesome. Well, Joe Keithley, from DOA, Sudden Death Records, check out the brand new compilation, No Escaping from What You Are, an all-star tribute to punk rock's most enduring band. Joe, thank you so much for your time today and for being on the podcast. It means a lot.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. Cheers.